Hola, mi gente bella. Hello, my beautiful people. I'm very excited to be here with you all. I was sitting here in my fields and I'm like, wait a minute, let me start recording a little short episode on how to survive the cancer feels. Because I just looked really quickly on an app on my phone. Let me go back so I could share that. But I don't even need to look at that app on my phone because I'm like, I feel it, I feel it, I feel it. So, we went from Gemini season, which was all the focus of communication and how are we communicating and also our thinking processes. A lot of us felt a little burnt out at that time because there were so many planets in Gemini. Still, we have Jupiter in Gemini, which is going to be expanding, our connection to technology. You see how quickly AI is growing. We have all this energetic influence of Jupiter for the next year, where yes, communication is still going to be a focus. But now, as you know, astrology is seasonal. We are creatures of cyclical creatures. The sun is in Cancer. It just went there this weekend. What does it all mean? It's not only the sun that's in Cancer. Today we have actually a moon and water sign as well. So today, Thursday, we have the sun in Cancer, and the sun is, goes every month. We have a shifting of another sign, and it brings into focus a different aspect of ourselves. All those 12 signs of the zodiac are really reflecting different archetypes and different aspects of our lives and highlighting that part of ourselves so we can understand it better, so we could connect, so we could relate, so we can maybe heal, so we could ask ourselves those questions that allow us to gain more awareness about our day-to-day living, about our long-term dreams, about our family of origin, and about the family that we've created, and also the career, hobbies, and love. So it covers all of it in our spirituality. The sun in Cancer is talking about, the crab is the symbol, and it is really ruled by the moon. So we have the sun, which is all about identity and focusing on the character and who we are and who we're becoming in this life. And it's in Cancer, which is inward, which is creative, but it's inward. It's emotional. It is a water sign. It's the crabs. So it could be a little tough on the outside, but mushy, soft inside. Sometimes cancers can come across as that, as folks who are, a little tough. They have their standards, which is great. We like standards, right? Standards are all good. We want that. But at the same time, inside, they're very creative. They're very loving, and they've got their issues just like all of us. They have their feels, but on the outside, they could seem really strong, really tough because they are, but they also have that mushy center that we often don't get to see. If you get to see the mushy center of a Cancer, call yourself lucky. It means that they trust you, that you've gotten past the tough exterior, and they're ready to share their heart with you. And every sign, right, needs someone to call home. Everybody needs the place where they can lay down their guard and put their hat on a coat rack and just take their shoes off. And so Cancer is also that sign that when it rolls around, it's kind of forcing us in a way to deal with the emotional upheavals we may have had with Aries starting the season, right, for the spring, and Taurus trying to hold on to what it has and grow roots, and then Gemini talking about it. Cancer season is now bringing us a little inward. How are we feeling? Are we vibing with the cycles? Are we having fun this summer? Or does work overwhelm us? What's overwhelming us? And so not only do we have Sun in Cancer, right? The feminine energy of the moon, which rules the moon, the Cancer rules the moon, and the moon actually rules Cancer. And then we also have Mercury in Cancer. And Mercury is how we think, logical, our processes, mental processes. Venus, how we love, what we value in Cancer. So did you count that? We have the Sun, we have Mercury, we have Venus in Cancer. Now, so it's three of those, and then the moon, which goes through a new sign every 2.5 days, is in Pisces. And so, why did I decide to talk about this today? Because I was in my fields. I woke up a little moody, I have to say, not usually so. I usually tend to wake up pretty happy, I have to say, because I'm just grateful to be alive. After all the things that I've been through, I'm sure a lot of you have as well. In 2020, seeing half of my family pass, and then in my wedding 3 years ago, all of my family, my direct immediate family that was left after people passed away, all got COVID and were not able to attend the wedding. But thankfully, a lot of friends from near and far were able to. But at the same time, I've been through very traumatic things but also very joyful things, right? Being able to buy our home, getting engaged, getting married, and all this at the same time as I'm losing people. I know what I tell you may sound like extreme to you and intense, but there's so many of my listeners out there that have gone through lo mismo. You have lost people while you're having babies, you've lost people, things have happened, you've had medical things. And so here we are this Cancer season. Expect that perhaps the unresolved emotional stuff that you have with your mother, because Cancer also rules your mom, the unresolved stuff that you have with over giving. So if any of you out there are over giving, just giving too much as a way of life, raised to be a people pleaser, and how many of us women were not, we were all taught to be that, to give and give and give and give. We have this seemingly endless fount of like giving for a lot of us. And there's a lot of men like that as well. That now Cancer season might find us either in situations where one, we're overgiving and we're like getting pissed off about it, but not speaking about it. Or two, we are tired of overgiving and are now like burnt out. And three, if we're healthy and maybe things have aligned, we're actually in a really good place where we're nurturing ourselves and have boundaries. And so, in one of these three, and there's not just three, because again, we are unique individuals with multidimensional realities and all our own unique paths. But if you're that one where you're like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overgiving, and don't have any boundaries, or now I'm drained and I don't want to give anymore, or three, yeah, I've got the boundaries and I feel good. Kudos to you, the third one. A lot of us are, navigating all the other waters. And I want to talk about another side of Cancer. Cancer, because it's a water sign and it gives and it gives and it gives, can overgive to a fault, can people please to a fault. And then what happens is they get mad. They get angry. They get angry for something that, in essence, they're setting in motion. And we're not blaming the person who's suffering here. They're setting it in motion because there's something about their childhood, there's something about the way they were taught. A lot of us learn to feel safe by overgiving. If we're really needed, right, by people around us, because we're givers and we're helpers, then we're going to survive the dysfunction of our home, of our communities, of our relationships. But the beautiful invitation here with Cancer, and let's say, is that if we can nurture ourselves, if we could take a moment and go into nature, or take a walk, or work less, or give something to ourselves, or create solid boundaries, like I'm willing to work till this time and that's it. Or I can help 2 friends, but I can't help 10, right? Like, we're not these fonts of like ever expressing energy. We are soul-wise, but in a body, we still need rest, we need sleep. And as we're going through changes hormonally for men and women, and as life goes on, we may have to be more selective with our energy. And so if you are that Cancer that's pissed off and you're still overgiving, you need to take a moment. I invite you to pull back. I invite you to take a journal, to take a breath, to sit with yourself and say, in what ways do I feel like I'm overgiving? In what ways do I feel like I have to overgive, like people need me, right? If I don't do this, no one will do it, right? And then write out, what would be your ideal way of life? Would it be that people understand? What happens to a lot of us overgivers, or people who are very like, they're empaths, and we're kind and we're loving and we feel like we think of others. We expect that from other people. We expect people to go, oh no, I asked for her finger, her arm, and now I'm taking her leg. Like, I've asked for too much. The thing is, if we've trained people to ask for what they need, or to hint at it, or we respond to them, and then we overgive, we've now just created the cycle. And so when we pull back and we say, hey, I can only give to this amount, what winds up happening is there's going to be backlash. They're going to be upset. And so if you can write out and journal how you've overgiven, how you don't want to overgive anymore, how can you set up these boundaries? And when I said that Cancer is also giving us an opportunity to like delve deep into how we overgive and our boundaries, it is also the sign of intuition. And so during this time, and really throughout the year, of course, we can sit with ourselves, con nosotros mismos, and journal and start to have these awareness journal exercises that allow us to understand ourselves. Because a lot of what we do is unconscious. It's just what we know. It's like we're on automatic, we're on autopilot. Like, let me give. That's what I do. Yeah, I got the energy. Let me give. Let me help. That's how I was raised. But at some point, if you start getting mad about it. And let me tell you, when any of us are mad of any sign, the things we're going to do are usually passive aggressive. And that means that you're angry and pissed. You do not want to use the words or don't feel that it's safe enough. So you're going to do things like not answer texts. You're going to, forget things. You're going to maybe have a snide comment or two. You're going to have an attitude. And so when you have that energy, that's not going to help. You're validly upset because you feel like you're being drained. But how do we create a healthy pattern for you to become aware of how you're overgiving and then be able to communicate that not only to yourself, but to those around you, a los demás, so then we could start shifting how you're relating with people. Now, I used to be an overgiver. I'm an older sister of a Latino family that really didn't have other family members, right? I have cousins in the country, but we didn't grow up together after a certain degree. And we used to go to Argentina a lot. But after a while, we stopped. So it was really mom, dad, the four kids. I'm the older sister. You guessed it. I was wiping booties, changing diapers. Um, a way of life for me was leaving my interests and my desires behind for other people because the other people were kids. You know what I mean? So how am I not gonna not go on? How am I gonna go on a date when my little brother and sister was begging me to stay home and watch a movie? Yeah, I was that sucker. I was that sucker that stayed home, took care of my siblings, kind of felt like a little mom, as a teenager, because I had little siblings and they were like, no, nanny, we want to stay with you. And yes, I even got called nanny. So that tells you everything. But as I grew up and I realized, well, I'm taking care of boyfriends, I'm taking care of partners, I'm taking care of friends in college and beyond, overgiving in projects, overdoing in projects, letting other people slide. Would they have this? They have that. They have this. They have that. And what started to happen is stuff was just too much on my plate. And so when I started to say no to people, to say no to my acting teacher at the time, I was her assistant. And when I assisted her, she would give me class for free. But trust me, she asked for a lot. I gave a lot. When I started to say, hey, I know I have a sprained foot. I can't walk up and down 8th Avenue, go to Drama Bookshop in Midtown and do all these other things and like drop off flyers for your class because, it was back in the day. She got furious at me. I wound up getting upset back and I wound up walking away, right, from my acting teacher after 3 years of Miser, Stanislavski, a lot of different core energetics work, somatic work to tap into our feelings, all of the things. And that's one example. And so I learned, I was like, well, if I'm pissed and I'm overgiving, eventually I'm going to snap somehow. And so then I went to another level where I started to really write out, well, where am I overgiving? What's the ideal? Like, where is the ideal of me giving others, also getting to relationships where I also receive? Now, a lot of spiritual people, a lot of older daughters, and also a lot of men as well who are trained this way. We overgive because we think it's good, like it's godly, right? It's kind, it's loving, it's ethical, it's espiritual, it's what we should want in the world. The issue is, again, if we set ourselves to overgive, we're like that free water fountain that everybody's going to drink from, and then we're going to be upset that people are drinking from it. It is okay to want to be spiritual and kind and loving, but we need to start that with ourselves. And so I know some of you are like maybe twitching. You're like, ay, Dios mío, no puedo, because you were raised to be that way. But we have to really focus on our own self-awareness to see how we're setting these things up in our lives as a reflection of our childhood, as a reflection of what we've been told is good for us, right? Or it's good to be a giver. It's good to be an older sister. It's good to love. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm glad I was that person because, I have this empathy and this empath ability to like read people and feel people. And I used to be like, oh, let me give people what they want before they ask for it, and I am a psychic medium. But I had to differentiate. I can't go around reading people's minds and then I don't receive the same and then I'm getting annoyed, right? Or I feel hurt or I feel alone, that it creates victimization. And that happens with the sign of Cancer. It also rules like, we're like, oh, and for water signs, feeling like victimized because of our overgiving. And so the good news is that we do have a way to empower ourselves and to stop this type of activity. And again, being mindful that when we do that, people are not going to like it, they're going to push back. But the key in all this, and something that Cancer suffers with and suffers from, is communication. So what do I mean by that? Obviously, we all have different natal charts. So if you have more Gemini in your chart, Obviously, maybe you'll be able to communicate more clearly if you have Mercury in certain signs. But if you're a water sign, you might be somebody who's like, well, they should know. They know me already. Can't they see that I'm exhausted? Can't they see that I've overgiven? Can't they see that I'm just wasting away, taking care of everybody else? And then I don't have any time for myself. But it's not their job to assess that. Like I may feel like, oh, I don't want to burden you. It's your job to assess that. It's your job to be accountable to yourself as an adult in the face of the dysfunction you may have grown up in the face of all the demands that are put on you if you're a parent, if you're taking care of older adults, if you've got all these things going on, which I understand. And it could be difficult. Now, in life, there are times where we have to overgive because people are passing away, people are ill, there's new babies, there's just different levels of responsibility. But it's not sustainable. So if you are in a place in your life where you have to overgive, you're like, well, Vanessa, I have to. Okay, I see you, I hear you, I support you, y te quiero mucho, I love you, and I'm sending you love. I see you, I affirm you, I've been there. And then make a plan for yourself. When does this end? When do now I include more time for myself? Because again, it's not sustainable. Even in busy schedules, we need a moment to go listen to a concert that we like, or go take a walk in nature, work out, lift some weights, do some things, or just meditate, or go watch our favorite show, or go get a pedicure, or get a massage, whatever it is that we can afford, whatever it is that we can do and we want. Now, because communication is not like a high point for some cancers, the way they're communicating is passive aggressively. And I'm not saying cancers are passive aggressive, by the way. I'm just saying that when we are overgivers and we give too much, we can start like pulling back by doing these things that are obviously going to upset people. And you think that they're giving them a message. But the thing is, we're all adults now. We have to use our words. It's important, no matter how hard it is. Now, if it's some unreasonable boss or, evil creature, excuse me, oops. And I don't mean evil creature, but let's just say that there's some abusive boss, that there's another situation, then you have a whole other issue on your hands because you're not supposed to live like that. I've been abused at jobs and I had to sign like, an NDA form, so I can't talk about it too much. But I did get myself out of there. That's why I signed the form, because they gave me my demands and I left. But if you're in an abusive situation, that's a whole other chapter for a whole other story. But if you're in a situation that you can empower yourself to change for yourself, it really is positive because it'll take you out of the loop of feeling victimized and feeling put upon by the others. Now, Cancer, it is a beautiful sign. It is a sign of depth, of love, of intuition, of creativity. And so one of the ways that you can nurture yourself is by spending time creatively. What do you like to do? Do you like to sing? Do you like to knit? Do you like to perform? Dancing, music, listening to music, bird watching. Allow yourself to get to know yourself now at this stage of your life. You may have changed what lights you up. We change, we're cyclical creatures. So do our interests sometimes. There are times that you're going to be like, oh, I've always loved this. And like, I love making up songs, right? Whether they're good or not, that's up to the audience. But since I'm a little kid, a lot of us were like, da, da, dee, da, do, da, da. Now I do musical improv. So what gift can you give yourself where you can self-nurture because you're choosing activities that fill your soul? So that's one of the antidotes, one of the ways to empower yourself when you're feeling the feels, whether you're Cancer or Pisces or Taurus or whatever you are, we're people. And as people, we sometimes overgive. So check in with yourself. Am I being passive aggressive? And I don't like to label people that at all, but I looked it up and I was like, well, what happens when people don't answer people or don't do this or don't do that? What happens when people are not communicating? And I get it. If you have a pattern where you've been raised not to communicate or people have ignored you, like it's going to be challenging, but it's also part of being an adult to be accountable to ourselves and others for our own mental health and to add to the healing of the relationships that we have in our lives. At least my perspective. I've had to have very difficult conversations with people throughout my life. And I'll get support. I'll call a friend before and after the talk. I'll even start with like, this is really hard for me because I feel this way and I don't want us to lose our friendship or I don't want us to have an issue. And then I'll go into what I'm perceiving or what I'm feeling. When I decided to go full time in 2012, 2013, I eventually had to write a letter. It was 2013, actually, when I wrote the letter, where I told my dearest friends, hey guys, I know you always had me at your birthdays, at your baptisms for your kids, at this, at that, at your events, at your summer solstices, you've been at mine, we've circled together, but now I'm building a business and I don't know how to, but I need to support myself. And, y'all know that my first year online, I hit six figures through a program I created. And I also had to leave my home and live in Panama, live in Costa Rica, live in LA, live in Miami. Like I was literally living in people's living rooms, right? And then I had a room, I think, in Panama. But it was tough. So it was like exciting and being a gypsy and actually I shouldn't use that word, right? Because I use it in an honorable way, like a person who's traveling, but I also don't want anyone who's who is listening to this or reading this article, that they feel that it's a pejorative, a term, but I mean it with all honor and all love, meaning that I'm somebody who is traveling with my gifts into different spaces, right? And that's how my ancestors were, by the way. My ancestors left all these countries and then had to like move around to different places. And in my DNA, I also found out on my dad's side that we have links to Gypsy DNA as well. But I mean it in the highest, most beautiful way, which is a traveling people, right? Who travel with their gifts. And so that's how I saw myself. Like I'm traveling, have gifts, will travel. And it was really hard not to have a home. And so in that time that I was fighting for something that I didn't even know what I was fighting for, I was fighting for my own business. I was fighting for my own, I guess, location freedom, for my own creative freedom, for my own liberation from abusive bosses, from my own opportunity and ability to dive deep into my gifts and help other people dive deep into their gifts. I was fighting for the ability to use talents that people had maligned throughout history and to use the talents that I'm best at, right? My psychic mediumship, teaching classes, energy healing, hypnosis, clinical hypnosis. These are all gifts I've had for a long time and spent time educating myself. And so it was really tough. And so I wrote a letter to people and I said, please, to my friends, not just people, and to mi gente, and I was like, mi gente hermosa, like I will not be there in all these special events, perhaps. Doesn't mean that I don't love you. Well, some people dumped me because they were like, oh, she thinks she's special now because she's building a business. Some people got it. Some people were like, wow, this is a big endeavor. Especially think about it. You tell somebody that you're building a business online now in 2024, they're still like, wow. But you think about 2012, 2013, like that was crazy, right? Again, I was doing classes on conference calls. I wasn't doing like what I'm doing now on Zoom. And so I had to write that letter that was really uncomfortable. The letter where I told people, I love you. I've been here all the time. I've been able to listen. I've been able to give advice for free, all this stuff. But now I'm trying to build a business to survive, to come back to my apartment in New York City, pay my $2,000 rent and then some. And again, some people cut me off. Some people continued and we're still friends today. But there are going to be those moments in your life where the weight of people pleasing and the weight of trying to appease everyone and be everything to everyone and overgive is just going to be too much. And so I urge you to look at your life and look at yourselves and look at your behaviors during this Cancer season. It's a good lens from which we can look at our own behavior, our own lifestyle, the choices we've made, and see, well, how can I empower myself to trust my intuitive knowing, to trust my inner self to guide me across these platforms, social media wise, to guide me with relationships, to guide me in a way where I have enough time to support myself, nurture myself, fill myself with good juju and good energy, and not have to overgive in any way. Even in my business online, I've overgiven. I used to answer during COVID, pandemic 2020, 2021. I used to answer messages at 3 in the morning. Now I'm like, well, we got to wait till like it's normal business hours, my people. Although with the advent of social media, normal business hours could be at any time, any place around the world. And my clients are global, but I still had to say, hey, I'm in Eastern Standard Time. This is when I can answer. But I had to do that. And my desire to be all things to all people, I was like, wow, girl, you really want to be all things to all people? You can't. And I had to look at, okay, what does that mean? Okay, that's my own self-awareness that I want to see myself as the good person, the good girl. the one that's there, the older sister, right? Which I was raised in. And slowly but surely, I started creating boundaries where I honor my time and I honor the time of others. And so it's really important for us to do that. So one, if you're overwhelmed and you're pissed off and you're acting in these, subconscious ways, check yourself, look at your own deep self, trust yourself, shift your energies. If two, you're already drained, reinstate the boundaries you have, and then just take care of yourself. What does that mean? Do you need time off from work? Do you need time off from phone calls? What do you need? I seldom say I'm peopled out because I love me some people, but it happens. Sometimes I am peopled out and I'm like, wow, what's happening to me? It's like, well, you're changing. You need a little more solitude. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. Also, I have a big planet transiting my 12th house of solitude. So there you go, right? There you have it astrologically. But it's okay to honor that. We're not always going to be tap dancing on stage and then at the party. We're not always going to be surrounded by people chatting and chatting. Sometimes we're in an office like I am now, speaking into a camera, into your hearts and minds and spirits, and sharing off the top of my head. And so I share these stories. I invite you into this awareness because I adore you, but also because I think we can all live better, right? We can all live better if we become more self-aware. And the third part of this, so if you're drained already, work on like nurturing yourself. And the third part, if your boundaries are in and you're living the life, just deepen into your intuitive knowing during this time. Allow yourself to feel dreamy. Honor your ancestors. Honor the nostalgia. Cancer is also a sign that rules nostalgia, the past. Are you fond of a certain type of movie, a certain type of food, a certain type of fashion style? Explore an old fashioned or a past life. Explore your ancestral lineages and where they come from and what did they eat? What did they do during the day? What were their lives like? Study the area where you come from. If this is exciting, of course. If it's not, no te preocupes, don't do it. But if you're already in a good place of balance, this is a great place to deepen intuition. Getting an oracle deck or getting a tarot card, or you could shuffle them. And then you could ask, what do I need to know right now? Taking that deep breath in. And before running to the book, just taking a breath and asking yourself, what do I need to know? And allowing the card, just the visual and the intuitive knowing to come through. Intuition is always there for us. It's always coming through. A lot of times our social, conditioning might overrun it. Like we're like, oh, I don't want to look like a rude person to run out on this person. I think I've shared that I've almost walked into a couple of elevators in my day in New York City alone with someone where spirit said to me, don't do it. And I didn't. And on two occasions, suddenly somebody was screaming and running through down the staircase where the person had been grabbed. And then I think the person got out of the elevator and then ran and went. This is before all the cameras. This is like 15 years ago. And the person ran through a back and got out through the back of the building. It felt rude to start to walk into an elevator and then go, so I feel something weird. And I'm looking at them like they're just a professional person in a suit. They look like my neighbor. And I'm like, I don't care. I feel weird. Okay, pull back. Don't go. I'm going to take the stairs. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom. Have a good day. Or whatever. Maybe I did not even know their name because then we would have known who did it. So I don't know their name. But you know what I'm saying. And those moments where I listened to my intuition really helped me to not be abused, helped me to save my life. And so if you're feeling good with your boundaries, or you feel like you're in the process of putting them in, take some time in the next, 17 days during this Cancer season and spend time with the moon. Spend time with selenite. Let me show it to you here on the camera. This is selenite. It helps clear energies. Any white stone, any stone that's like moonstone, stones that invoke self-nurturing, light pink stones, light blue stones, self-love, that invoke honoring your intuition, that invoke you taking time off from the daily stress of all of the things that everybody wants from you to check in with yourself. And remember that you can't, I mean, you can do whatever you want, obvio, right? But it's important for you not to blame people or be mad at people because they're not reading your mind. It's important not to blame people and be mad at others and act in accordance if you haven't communicated clearly. And sometimes we think we're communicating clearly, but we really haven't. And the third part of it is sometimes we've communicated clearly, the other person isn't going to change. And so now either we alter the relationship or the expectations. But in essence, we have to do what we need to do to be able to survive this relationship, situationship, job. How do we change our expectations when we know that someone is going to be a particular way? If we don't, we'll just get upset. If we work with it. Now, that doesn't mean you're enabling it, because I could hear people going, oh, it's enabling. For some people, you know, you're not going to do a project with them again. For some people, you might ask your husband or friend or whoever to go to therapy with you, right? Counseling, mostly your husband, right? Or wife, not so much a friend. With the friend, you might request a deeper communication, a deeper talk. So think, you know, we could go deeper and understand each other. But just notice, because a lot of times when we're overwhelmed and burnt out, we blame others. And I'm not saying that people aren't, you know, impinging upon us, but it's also really important under this Cancer season to gain self-awareness so we can see how we're also setting that up. I can say that now I don't feel put upon most of the time. And even when people want free sessions, which I do all the time here and there, but at the end of the day, I also support myself, right? My podcasts are free. I have to pay for them though, right? The hosting, etc. And I do so much work that is unpaid, like working on my website and editing this and putting it up and all that, that I have to draw a line. That while I can do some free sessions or discounted sessions, that the bulk of my work has to, when I do so much that's free, has to be something that I charge. And so I invite you to rest during the season, to let yourself dream. Boy, I've been having amazing dreams. Kind of deep, a little scary, but also amazing. Keep a dream journal if that's what you want. Get yourself into water, like clear water, shower, bath, pools, ocean. Make sure the ocean is as clean as it can be, because you know these days. And allow yourself to flow with the cycles, because it is a water sign. Clear yourself spiritually, but also clean house emotionally. Check in with how you're proceeding with people and their demands or the responsibilities you have, and then check in how you're communicating your boundaries, because that's going to be key. All right, my loves, let me know if this served. I'm sending you big hugs, mucho amor. And I just want y'all to know that me setting up boundaries, a shifted, changed my life. It changed my life because I was raised to start readings at 16, you know, to help people. That I felt like, well, I have this gift, let me help people with it. And we're not in the old days where healers and curanderos and shamans were taken care of by the community. We're in modern days where you still have to pay your rent. And I didn't marry no sugar daddy, right? I married the man I love. And so um, abundance is important. Prioritizing our energy is important. Giving and also giving ourselves and communicating the boundaries. I know it's tough, but we have to do it. We can do it kindly. We can do it from a grounded manner. And then setting up those times for us to self-nurture and to spend time with our intuition, with our dreams, and our creativity. Mucho amor para todos. Gracias por estar aquí. Yes, Cancer season is in the house, en la casa. A lot of agua. There's a lot of tears. There's clearing. There's cleansing during the season. So let yourself create ceremony and ritual around honoring your ancestors, clearing those patterns that are not working for you now, and releasing through tears, laughter, and joy. Mucho amor.